It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be here. What I want to do today is to introduce myself. I've been around for about 8 months, and some of you may not have met me, may not realize where I come from. Then there are a lot of things happening. I want to go over just some things that are happening with the agency. We are in the middle of the legislative session. Week 5 just concluded. There's 4 more weeks. A lot of stuff going on there, and I want to go over some of that. And I also want to talk about a little bit about where we're going in the future, and then just wrap up with a few things, just a few of my values that I want to share with you all, and hopefully that will provide a vision for the future for all of us. First off, a little about me. I was raised in the very southeastern corner of Alabama, a place that probably is a lot like Sumter County was before the villages. It was a place, when I was a child, there was the traffic light flashed yellow in one direction, flashed red from the other direction. Then they put in, when I was a teenager, they put in a red, yellow, and green light right in front of the police station. Honest to this day, I think it was a revenue issue because whether there was another car coming or not, if that light was red and you went through it, they were going to give you a ticket. And there was never a car coming. I mean, this was a very sparsely populated area. There was no traffic. When I went to the big city of Tallahassee, that was a real culture shock to me, if you can imagine that. But I went to Tallahassee to go to Florida State University and took an interest in, I actually went there as a music major, believe it or not. I played classical guitar, and FSU had a really good music program, and for classical guitar it was one of the best in the country. So went there, and I was exposed to people who actually had musical talent, and I realized that the music wasn't for me, and so I wound up bumming around for a little while and finally graduated with degrees in public administration. And loved Tallahassee, stayed there, began working with the Florida legislature, the Florida House of Representatives, the Appropriations Committee specifically, and my very first budget assignment was the old Developmental Services Program in the old Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services, HRS, for those of you that have been here in Florida for a while. And the raging controversy at that time was a proposal to greatly expand the use of institutional care in the state of Florida, specifically a 6-bed ICFDD expansion. And it would have come at great expense to serve just a few people, and that started a major discussion that really took place over about 2 or 3 years, and finally culminated with what in essence is the waiver program that we have today. And that program started out as a $63 million program back in the early 90s, and of course today that program is over $800 million and really constitutes the bulk of what we do in terms of the numbers of people that we serve. But I was there in the early days, and of course, the entire concept behind this waiver was to, and as the program director, a gentleman named Dick Lepore put it at the time to me, he said, "I want to give the program to the people that we serve. I want the system to exist for the people, not the other way around." And that was that really led to that concept of an independent waiver support coordinator, because back then case managers actually worked for the provider agency. And there was nothing wrong with that, but it did tend to, in some instances, it narrowed the focus of that case manager. Sometimes you had to hope that that provider had what that person wanted, because the likelihood of that case manager looking outside the confines of their agency it wasn't as likely, quite frankly, as if that person. That was the thought at the time. And so that's where the whole concept of independent support coordination came in. And the issue was it was independent. That was the key word there. It was independent from any service provider. Anyway, I stayed in the legislature in the appropriations process for about 19 years. And after 9 years of working for Health and Human Services Appropriations, I was offered the opportunity to become the staff director for the Criminal Justice and Judicial Appropriations Committee for the House, and I did that for 10 years. But I always had a soft spot in my heart for these issues and for the people that we serve. Along the way, I got married to a woman, Susan Prater, who at least some of you here know. I've run into a couple of people already. And she has a brother who has Down syndrome, who lives essentially on the same property with us now. It's a different house with his mother, who is in her mid-80s now. And she is in terrific health. So in some respects, we are an example of what you hear about all the time, where individuals with disabilities are living with caregivers who are getting older. And it really highlights in my mind the need for a program that we know is sustainable and a program that we know is going to be here 10, 20, 30 years from now. And that is, of course, what I want more than anything else. When I leave here, if I'm comfortable that I've left something that is solid, that's going to be in place for the long term, I'll be very satisfied with my work in this position. Then a couple of years ago, just to kind of tie up the loose end, I was actually approached to come and help the agency figure out the whole budget situation. I think you all understand we were looking at a $150 million deficit, and the agency really was having a hard time even basically grasping what the situation was with its budget. I mean, to put it bluntly, there was no one in the agency that really understood the budget process and how the finances work. And that was largely why I was brought in, and then there was a...
Can you speak into the mic a little bit?
Okay, and then there was a change in leadership. Oh, wow, it makes a difference, doesn't it? And then there was a change in leadership, and I was asked to become the director. And Monday, in fact, I go before the Senate Children, Families, and Elder Affairs Committee for the first round of confirmation hearings. So, looking forward to that. Anyway, let me move into a few things that are happening with the agency. I'm not sure if there are any. Well, I know there are at least a couple of support coordinators in here. And one thing that I just signed a memo restoring the ABC access for waiver support coordinators. I think I've heard from enough people that was not a decision I was ever really part of, and certainly I wasn't dug in on it. And I've come to believe, because of other things that have happened, that this is probably just a better way to do this and more efficient. And one of those things that came to one of the reasons is because we've had an issue here lately with service authorizations. If there are any providers here where service authorizations have been backdated, and then a provider has had a situation where they may have been providing service, and then all of a sudden they get notified that, well, that service was taken off this person's plan 2 weeks ago. We're not going to do business that way. And I have taken some steps, some immediate steps, and then I want to take some long-term steps, such as improving the use of automation, so that we don't do that. That's just something that I believe became more of a habit than it needed to be in our agency, and I want to lighten that out.